Dave Rubin went on Eric Bolling's show. This is interesting for a number of reasons. For one thing, I didn't know Eric Bolling had a show. I did not know Eric Bolling had a show. I didn't know he was still, in the political commentary game, if you will. And Dave vomited up some sort of sad excuse for political commentary. Take a look.
I'd like to bring in host of the Rubin Report, Dave Rubin. Dave, thank you for being here, boy. I just delivered that monologue on what do we have in store for the next 2, 4, who knows how many years. Is socialism creeping into America?
Yeah, well, I certainly wish we weren't at this point, but when I tell people I told you so, yeah, I told you so. I was sort of put on the map as the why I left the left guy because I was a progressive. I was a Bernie supporter, and a lot of people know about my evolution and my political awakening. But what I was warning about, 5, 6 years ago, about how every single political and cultural norm was going to be put on the chopping block by these new progressives and the Marxists and these big government Democrats. Well, it's all sort of come here. And I don't think that there's going to be much to stop them at this point. And I think a lot of people, I really sense this from, say, the last few remaining good liberals. And by good liberal, I mean sort of the blue dog Democrats that used to exist, the moderate Democrat, the JFK liberal that used to exist. I think a lot of them are really regretting things right now because, they really didn't want to support Trump because Orange Man bad, but he was keeping the wheels on the American system. And I think what we have in store now is going to be some massive government stuff that everything, as I said, every norm from a men to a woman to gendered language at school to Black Lives Matter being taught in grade school and everything else, everything is going to be on the table.
Without a doubt, the dumbest political commentator in the game today, and I don't even think it's close. I mean, just stunningly stupid in so many ways. So, first of all, praising the blue dogs and acting, they're the reasonable, the moderate Democrats, the blue dog Democrats, the old school Democrats, they're the reasonable ones. Well then, Dave, you must love a guy by the name of Joe Biden, don't you? He's basically a moderate Republican. And that's not me speaking, that's Joe Biden's voting record speaking. This isn't the opinion of Kyle Kalinske, this is Joe Biden's long track record, okay? I'll tell you, the Patriot Act, he was with the Republicans. NAFTA, he was with the Republicans. And, Dave likes to act like he's a free market guy. Okay, well, there you go. Free trade. That's right up your alley, right? The list goes on and on. Iraq War, he was with the Republicans. He is a moderate Republican. He's basically like a blue dog. But he tries to make the argument that Joe Biden is extreme and Joe Biden is beyond the pale and Joe Biden is crazy while also praising the exact kind of Democrat that Joe Biden is. That makes no sense, Dave. You should love Joe Biden. You should appreciate Joe Biden. The other thing he does, which is gross, is that, so he conflates. His go-to is I'm going to bash the social justice warriors. But what he likes doing now is conflating the social justice warrior stuff, like the petty authoritarian positions on social issues. He likes conflating that with, and I quote, big government stuff. I think what's going to happen now is bad. It's going to be a lot of big government stuff. Like what? Care to elaborate? Care to elaborate on what you think is going to happen? Unfortunately, the sad reality is there's going to be no big government stuff. I wish that he was going to take on, do some big, bold, universal programs that would help the American people. He's not going to do that. But Dave praises JFK, the old school liberals like JFK. JFK was in favor of universal health care, Medicare for all, single payer. We played the video for you on this show. And so how do you praise JFK while simultaneously the big government stuff is going to be so bad? No, that stuff is good. Every other developed country has better big government stuff. They have universal health care. They have free college, for example. This is, especially at a time with an economic downturn, you want the government to pick up the slack. This is Keynesianism 101. If the government doesn't step in and fill the void, fill the vacuum, well, then you exacerbate the crisis and turn a recession into a depression or a depression into an even worse depression. He just doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything. His whole thing, I was the guy who was on the left, who then left the left. That's how I got put on the map. Me, bro, what we need is the sane people to step up. What do you, like, tell me what constitutes sane versus insane. What's acceptable versus not acceptable? What do you view as left versus what do you view as right? He's just like a jumbled mess of labels he doesn't understand, and it's all emoting. Democrats bad, big government bad, Biden bad, but blue dogs are good, moderate Democrats are good. That's Joe Biden! Joe Biden is a moderate Democrat. Joe Biden is basically a blue dog. Joe Biden's entire record is the kind of record that you claim that you would like. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when Dave Rubin did an interview with David Pakman, and David Pakman was inquiring what healthcare position Dave Rubin has and like what he views as the ideal system. And he shoved his foot directly in his mouth and embarrassed himself in a way I'm not sure I've seen anybody embarrass themselves since. He basically described Obamacare and acted like that's his preferred system, and then goes on to slam Obamacare. I don't know how anybody takes this guy seriously. He doesn't know anything about policy. He knows nothing about policy. You can't praise blue dogs and praise moderate Democrats and then slam Joe Biden, because that's the exact kind of Democrat you just praised. It makes no sense. Nothing he says makes sense. He's just a child. And what was the thing he said about Trump there? Oh, Trump kept the wheels on the system. Trump kept the wheels on the system. Imagine believing that. Imagine believing that. All Trump did, Trump was George W. Bush on steroids plus mean tweets. That's all Donald Trump is. No decorum, no civility, mean tweets all day long, totally unhinged and unfiltered, but also just governing like George W. Bush 95% of the time. And that's what kept the wheels on the system. More corporate tax cuts, more tax cuts for the wealthy, more deregulation. That's what kept the wheels on the system. There was just an attempted insurrection. There was a diet coup that he spoke out of both sides of his mouth on and was sort of cheering it on while also condemning it. Does that seem like a stable person who's, quote, keeping the wheels on the system? Dave Rubin. I don't even know what else to say. The guy's a joke. The guy's a clown. Rest in peace, Michael Brooks. We're trying to pick up the slack where we know he would be dunking on this clip relentlessly. So, in Michael's honor, God, Dave Rubin is stupid.